students, today we are going to study about the respiratory system, and this is your first chapter. And in the first chapter, we have the circulatory system also, but right now in the first lecture we are studying only the respiratory system, and in the next session we will cover the circulatory system. So what is the respiratory system? It is the network of organs and tissues that allow you to breathe. So plus tissues that are involved or help us in breathing. Okay, so as I just told you in the definition, that it has many organs and tissues and muscles involved. So the basic function is to expel carbon dioxide as a waste product from the body and delivers oxygen to all the body cells. So this is the basic fundamental function of respiration, to provide oxygen to all the body cells and expel carbon dioxide from the body cell as a waste product. Okay, as a waste product. Okay, so now we will study in detail what are the different parts of circulatory system. Okay, do you know what are the parts? I think most of you guys know what are the parts of respiratory system. So there are basically six main parts, six parts. Okay, six parts of respiratory system. What are those parts? We will study those in detail with the help of diagram also, but right now I'm just telling you the names and their functions, little bit of their functions, and then we will study with the help of diagram as well. Okay, the first part is, it is the nose. The first part is the nose and mouth. Okay, this is the first. The second is the pharynx and larynx. Are you familiar with these terms? Pharynx is also called a throat. Okay, and larynx is also called the voice box. Okay, your voice is coming from the larynx. Okay, and then comes the third main part, which is called the trachea. Trachea is also called the windpipe. Okay, right, you can also write down, it is called the windpipe, and this is actually the main tube, like a tube that connects the throat, or the you can say throat with the lungs. Okay, it is connecting the throats with the lungs. So this is the windpipe. Okay, windpipe. So next, the fourth part is bronchi. These are the, like I told you, that the trachea, which is the windpipe, it branches into two branches, like left and right lungs. It goes like this. This branch, left and right branch, is called bronchi, and then these bronchi further branches into very numerous, like more branches inside your lungs, and these are called bronchioles. So we can combine them as bronchi and bronchioles. Okay, and then comes the fifth part, which is called alveoli. These are tiny balloons, like air sac at the end of these bronchioles. Like we can use different colors. Okay, at the end of these bronchioles we have tiny air sacs, and they're very thin layer. So this is very important. The alveoli is very important because they are the tiny sacs, and from these tiny sacs they are covered with very fine capillaries, covered by thin capillaries, and these blood capillaries, they are filled with blood cells, RBCs. So these RBCs carry the oxygen from the lungs, with the air that is coming to the lungs. It is filled with oxygen. So this oxygen from the alveoli, which is covered by the capillaries, is going to the red blood cells. Okay, and from the red blood cells, the carbon dioxide that is coming from all the cells of the body is going to the lungs. Okay, the sixth part is the very important part, that is very important in the process of breathing, is called a diaphragm. Diaphragm. This is actually a muscle which is attached to the base of our lungs. It is a dome-shaped muscle. It is a dome-shaped muscle, and this is attached to the base of the lungs. Okay, now we can move to the next part. Okay, now you can clearly see different parts of the respiratory system with the help of this diagram. Now you can see here, we can see this is the nasal passage, and inside the nasal passage we have tiny hairs, or we can call it cilia. They trap, and they have mucus also. They filter the air, and then this air passes through from the oral cavity down the pharynx, which is called the throat, and then from the pharynx to the larynx, which is called the voice box, and from the voice box it's going down the trachea, which is called the windpipe. And at this point, I want to tell you a very important thing. You know, when we eat food, this food might be enter into our trachea, because if you are eating food, how it knows that it has to go to the food pipe, not to the windpipe. So there is a muscle here sitting just over the trachea, and this is called epiglottis. This acts like a shutter, like a gate that closes the windpipe. When you eat something, it closes the windpipe so that the food cannot enter the windpipe. It will be a very threatening and dangerous situation if the food goes to the windpipe or our lungs. Okay, now next. Now here we can see this trachea ends here, and from here it branches into two. Okay, the left and right sides of the lungs. So this point where it branches to, it is called bronchi, and then further these bronchi are branches into numerous bronchioles, as I told you, bronchioles. Okay, and then this is called the lung, and the lungs are covered with these ribs, which is called rib cage also. Okay, so it actually protect the lungs from because lungs are very soft, so it protect the lungs from any cause of injury or anything. And this is the diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle which is resting below the thoracic cavity. You know, the heart and our lungs are present in thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity. While this below the thoracic cavity we have abdominal cavity. So between the thoracic cavity and abdominal cavity we have a muscle which is called diaphragm, and it is very important in the process of breathing, because the movement of this muscle is actually responsible for moving air into and out of the lungs. Understand? This is the thoracic cavity, this is the abdominal cavity, and then this thoracic cavity we have rib cage that is protecting our lungs, and inside the lungs we have bronchi and bronchioles, and at the end of these bronchioles we have tiny air sacs. They are not visible in this diagram but I'm making. They are air sacs which are called alveoli, and these alveoli, they are covered with the capillaries. Carries carbon dioxide from the body cells, and it takes in oxygen from these alveoli to the various cells of the body. Okay, what is actually the breathing process? Because basically we know that respiration is, the purpose of respiration is to bring in oxygen and take out the carbon dioxide. So this process is actually called the breathing process. So what is this breathing process? You know, this is also called, breathing process is in scientific terms we can also called as pulmonary, oh no, it's very thick, sorry, pulmonary ventilation. This is also called pulmonary ventilation. It is very important process to move air into and out of the lungs. So as I told you, its primary purpose is to supply the body with oxygen and eliminate carbon dioxide, okay? Eliminating carbon dioxide from the body. So basically the breathing process is further divided into two phases. Breathe in, which is called inspiration or inhalation, and exhalation, which is called the breathing out of the air, okay? Exhalation or exhaling, inhaling and exhaling. Okay, now first we will study about what is inhalation, because most of the students get confused in this. What is the like the shape of the, what are the changes that happen in the shape of the diaphragm, and what happens to the lungs, what happens to the rib cage. So how they are just confused. So sometimes they write relaxation instead of contraction.